everyone, thank you for having me today. My name is Kugana Suresh and I am going to be speaking to you today is introduction theory about cognitive therapy. What theory assigned it? This theory that our thought, belief and of even influence our emotional and behavior. In cognitive therapy, the goal is to identify and challenge all thought and replace them with more and helpful one and leading to positive change in emotional and behavior. Then second is how it is related to counseling. Cognitive therapy is closely related to counseling as it is used as therapy approach within counseling season. Cognitive therapy is counselor can assign client in understanding is that the connection between their thoughts, feelings and behaviors, ultimately promoting personal growth and well-being. This is my part and I would like to pass my friends is Tamil Selvan. That's all for my part and thank you, madam.
My name is Thomas Selvan and I want to talk about the history of the theory. So the theory that we are working on is cognitive therapy. The history of this theory starts with Aaron Beck, who developed cognitive therapy as an approach to help individuals and identify and change distorted thought patterns. Initially this was focused on depression. So Beck observed that his patients constantly had negative thoughts about themselves, the world and the future. He theorized that in these cognitive distortions contribute to their emotional distress. The origins of cognitive therapy came from behavioral therapy, which then changed to CBT, which is known as cognitive behavioral therapy. This was expanded by Beck's work. Specifically, this theory focuses on how a person's thoughts lead to feelings of distress. And the idea behind cognitive therapy is how you think determines how you feel and act. And in other words, our thoughts drive and control our emotion and our behavior. As mentioned above, the main focus was on depression, which led to Beck to identify three different mechanisms that result in depression. First is the automatic flow of negative thoughts, second, negative self-schemas, and third and lastly, malfunction in logic. Okay, so thus, cognitive therapists help their clients to change dysfunctional thoughts to relieve distress. It focuses mainly on relationship between thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. That is all from me. Now I would like to pass it to Hani to talk about the theoretical assumptions.
Hello, this is Henry and I will be talking about operant conditioning in cognitive behavioral therapy. So basically, operant conditioning is a theory proposed by a psychologist named Frederick Skinner, who proposes that a person will generate immediate thoughts whenever faced with a specific situation, which will then influence their behaviors towards this situation. He also proposes that through two different methods called reinforcement and punishment, a person's immediate thoughts about the specific situation can be modified to become more or less likely. So, since we are talking about counseling, we will be primarily focused on reinforcement because you probably do not want to punish your clients. So, anyways, the two main types of reinforcement are positive reinforcement and negative reinforcement. Positive reinforcement is the addition of desired stimuli in response to desired behavior, while negative reinforcement is the removal of undesired stimuli when performing desired behavior. So for an example of positive reinforcement, you could, for instance, encourage a person when they are facing specific stressful situations, which will then cause their negative thoughts about it to become less likely to occur, while they are more likely to develop more positive thoughts toward this specific situation. I shall now pass this presentation on to the next person.
Thank you, Mr. Henry. My name is Nur Suhani binti Harami. Hereby, I'm going to present to you the theoretical assumptions of cognitive therapy. As you have listened from Mr. Henry about operant conditioning, here I stand before you to delve into a core theory that resonates at the heart of modern psychotherapy. is a theory that not only shapes our understanding of mental health but also serves as a guiding light in the realm of counseling and therapy. I speak of none other than the biopsychosocial model of mental health. In cognitive behavioral therapy, there's a core theory called the biopsychosocial model of mental health. This theory suggests that mental health is influenced by biological, psychological, and social factors. Biological factors come from within the body, like maintaining a healthy lifestyle or having a family history of mental health issues. Psychological factors relate to our mindset, such as catastrophic thinking. Social factors are influenced by our social circle. Having supportive friends and family is an example of a positive social factor. This model is fundamental to our understanding of mental health in modern therapy. So it's reasonable to say that this model applies to all forms of counseling. As I've mentioned about the theory of cognitive therapy, I'm going through the assumptions of cognitive therapy. Cognitive therapy works on the idea that how we think affects how we feel and behave. It's like a chain reaction. Something happens, like an activity event, which triggers our thoughts. These thoughts then influence how we act and feel, leading to certain outcomes. For this therapy to work, it relies on a few key assumptions. Firstly, cognitive therapy believes that our thoughts are super important in how we act, especially when things get tough. It goes beyond just looking at what we do and considers how our thinking affects our actions. But here's the good news: our thoughts are not some big mystery. Therapists believe we can understand and even change them by talking about how we think and feel. Therapists also can figure out why we behave the way we do, and once we understand our thoughts, we can change them for better. This is what cognitive therapy is all about: helping people see things in a new light so they can feel happier and behave in a healthier ways. In a nutshell, it's about understanding and changing our thinking patterns to live better life. By breaking negative thoughts cycles and building positive ones, we can improve our mental well-being and how we interact with the world. And that's all from me. We are going to the next presenter.
Hi, my name is Amin Ibrahim bin Monazri, and now I'm going to talk about the technique or skill used in the theory. So one of the technique or skill used in the theory is cognitive restructuring. Cognitive restructuring, which is also known as cognitive reframing, is a therapeutic process used in the counseling and guidance. Cognitive restructuring helps clients to discover, challenge, and replace or modify their negative or irrational thoughts. These thoughts are often referred to as cognitive distortion. There are numerous cognitive distortion. Some of the most common cognitive distortion are filtering, which refer to a scenario in which an individual focuses on the negative in their life and ignore the positive. While catastrophizing is is when an individual is always expecting the worst case scenario, and personalization is when an individual is always assuming responsibility or blame for events beyond their control. The goal of cognitive restructuring is to help an individual shift from unhelpful and negative thought patterns to more positive and functional ones. Several cognitive structuring techniques can be used to identify, challenge, and replace the faulty way of thinking with a more accurate, helpful, and positive way of thinking. For example, Socratic questioning is a method that involves asking questions to challenge an individual irrational or negative thoughts. For instance, is there evidence to support this belief? Another cognitive restructuring technique is this catastrophizing, asking what if will help an individual to determine what is likely to happen and reduce irrational or unreasonable anxiety, while helping them to see that even the worst case scenario are manageable. Meanwhile, behavioral experiment is a technique by which an individual or a group tests the valid or group test the validity of their negative belief through the real world experience. Cognitive researching can help an individual reduce their anxiety by replacing tracing and irrational thoughts with more balanced ones. It can also improve an individual problem-solving skill by enhancing their ability to approach challenges more objectively, while also enhancing their emotional well-being, their emotional well-being by cultivating a more positive thought habit. So that's all for me. Now I will pass to Amir Shahid for the next slide.
Hi, my name is Amir Shahid bin Hilmi, and now I'm going to talk about guided technique. This ability involves allowing clients to explore and venture their thoughts and feelings in order to facilitate self-discovery and problem solving. In this way, it facilitates a deeper awareness of concerns and issues as well as personal insight that enable a person to make wise decisions. For example, a patient receiving therapy might be asked to picture a calm environment, complete with any sounds or textures and scents. It is because guided discovery creates imagery that engage all those five senses, which are sight, hearing, taste, touch, and smell. And it goes beyond simple visualization. Throughout the counseling process, this method fosters self-awareness and autonomy by pushing clients to find answers to their issues. Next, I will pass to Tia.
Hi, my name is Veronica. Today I'll be talking about exposure therapy, that is a technique under cognitive therapy. Exposure therapy is when a person is gradually exposed to something that they fear or anxious about in a safe and controlled environment so that they can overcome that fear or anxiety. It can be done using graded exposure, or also known as hierarchy of fear, by starting with the least anxiety-provoking scenario and gradually going up the ladder. For instance, a person has a fear of needles, so the therapist shows them the picture of a needle first, and then placing a covered needle near them, and then making them hold a needle, and then going step by step to do what they fear the most, which is getting an injection. The therapist may employ systematic desensitization. It's to help the client to get relaxed and get comfortable with each step of the process. By relaxation exercises like meditation, deep breathing, guided imaginary, and so on. There are a few types of exposure therapy. For instance, vivo exposure, imaginary exposure, virtual reality exposure. For example, virtual reality exposure is like using a technology to stimulate what the person fears the most. For instance, flight simulator for a person who have a fear of flying, so that they can gradually overcome that fear. As an individual gradually overcomes their fears, they learn that their anxiety decreases over time, and their confidence level in coping with their coping ability increases. That's all from me. Thank you. I'll pass it on to the next person.
My name is Shiraz Lena Anna Perempuan Shanmugam, and I would be explaining on another technique and skill that is used under the cognitive therapy, which is journaling and also keeping track of our thoughts. What is journaling? Journaling is something that we keep track of, for example, our emotions or feelings, or even stories that you would like to keep in your diary or a journal book that you can cherish it in your life. Journaling is also helpful in terms of keeping track of what happened in your life and why did it happen. Okay, in terms of counseling, journaling can be very helpful to a person who is having a hard time controlling their emotions. Journaling can also help you from keeping your thoughts in a more balanced way. For example, you had a bad day or a bad experience with someone who picked a fight with you in school or also in a workplace. In order for you to overcome that situation, all you can do is take out a piece of paper or a book, write down every single detail that happened, like why did the fight happen, what caused the fight happen, who was involved and how many people were involved. Write down how you felt during that fight or during any situation that you were in. And question yourself once you write down. Once you have written down, question yourself, why was I feeling anxiety inducing? What should I do to overcome this kind of situation? Keeping track of all these emotions will be a source of reflection in our life. When we look back in our journaling book, we will come across of that situation. Maybe in future you come across the same situation. You can also look back to this book where you have written the same situation. You can reflect and find out how were you able to overcome this situation. Not will we be able to know how did we overcome, we will also be able to see that if we have improvement in ourselves, whether we have the tendency to overcome an anxiety situation or a depression situation, or we have gotten worse in overcoming that kind of situation. That's all from me. Thank you.
Greetings, madam. My name is Noor Aimokisa, and for my part, I'll be sharing the various critiques of cognitive theory or therapy. Despite in most cases that this theory managed to help recover some patients, there are a few critics that has been considered or argued by some well-known psychologists and therapists. To recap, CBT, or known as cognitive behavioral therapy, is influenced by how we think, how we feel, and how we react. In the same way, it is the way we think determines how we react. Therapist helps to focus on the correlation between thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. Firstly, our first critic, Jerome Kagan, a key pioneer of developmental psychologist and the first psychologist to show that a person's biology is connected to their personality and corresponding behavior, agreed that CBT only heals the cognitive process and neglects the patient's emotions or feelings, which means that CBT does not put their focus on the whole components. Instead, they work hard only towards changing the patient's thinking process to positive. Consequently, insufficient attention to emotional processing could lead to the client suppressing or denying their emotion, or even masking or faking it. Instead, their emotions too should be focused and should be engaged with to work on it. To add on to this, CBT aren't aware and does not put into consideration of outside factors that could contribute to mental illnesses such as genetics, traumas, stress, and many more. As mentioned before, cognitive therapy is believed to be a functional treatment to problems such as depression and anxiety. Therefore, stress will not only be the factors that influenced it. Moving on, we have critics from Nancy Chodoro, a feminist psychologist. She commented that instead of looking at the whole part, CBT is narrowed down into one part and ignores the rest. To be specific, social and relational factors. Additionally, CBT does not allow past events to be part of the process. Its main focus is the present. Again, this shows that CBT is a narrowed down process. It is important for the past experience or past event to be included, as it plays the crucial part in developing negative thoughts and emotions, as it tracks back the roots of where the client's problem started that influenced the person's behavior. Moreover, this results to the problem being unsolved, which then eventually leads to the problem being bigger and bigger until it cannot be ignored. Hence, it creates a heavier burden for the patients to carry on their shoulder.
Assalamualaikum, my name is Nur Anis Nabila, and I will be presenting on another two criticisms from Jonathan Shadler and also Alan Francis. Now, Shadler is a clinical psychologist who has criticized CBT for its overemphasis on symptom management and its neglect for deeper underlying issues. He argues that CBT often fails to address the root causes of psychological problems and may provide only temporary relief without facilitating lasting change. Shadler advocates for psychodynamic approaches that explore the unconscious motivations and relational dynamics contributing to psychological distress, suggesting that these approaches may lead to more profound and enduring therapeutic outcomes. Moving on, another scholar who has criticized CBT in a different way is Alan Francis, a psychiatrist who has raised concern about the over-reliance on CBT and other manualized treatments in the field of mental health. He argues that the rigid application of these treatments may overlook the individual differences and fail to address the complexity of mental health conditions. Francis advocates for more flexible and personalized approach to treatment that incorporates the range of therapeutic modalities tailored to the unique needs of each patient. Additionally, he has critiqued the pharmaceutical industry's influence on the promotion of CBT and other specific therapies over more comprehensive treatment approaches. To conclude, despite some people being able to fully recover with the help of CBT, others are concerned that relapse can occur. Although therapists insist on following and maintaining what they have learned throughout the session, most people recognize that it does not get better. One study found out that 439 patients who had received CBT, 53% of them relapsed within a year. That is all from me. Now moving on to the next presenter.
To conclude, as a group, we have learned that we now know that counseling is a trained procedure used to address psychological, emotional, and personal issues. As for cognitive therapy, we all learned that the goal of cognitive therapy, which is founded on Aaron Beck's biopsychosocial model, is to change the standing patterns, especially those related to depression. Clients can overcome fears and enhance their emotional well-being with the aid of techniques such as exposure therapy, guided discovery, decatastrophizing, and Socratic questioning.
And now I'm going to explain what I think about cognitive therapy. So, from our point of view, cognitive therapy has its strength and weakness. Cognitive therapy is still a useful tool, even though there's a lot of criticism that highlight cognitive therapy might benefit from a more subtle understanding of the factor influencing mental health. We learned that there are a lot of techniques, and those techniques can help the client in the counseling and guidance session. One of them is that cognitive therapy can help empower individuals. It helps them to get the skill that identify and challenge negative patterns that contribute to emotional distress. This can help build self-reliance and a self-control in someone who struggles with mental health. Secondly, it also has practical information that can help someone face the problem and manage to handle it. This solution-oriented approach can appeal to those seeking immediate improvement in their daily life. Other than that, there is also an individual approach. It focuses on individual thought and behavior, it potentially overlooking the role of social environmental factors that contribute to mental health struggles. After all these things considered, cognitive therapy is still a useful tool. Still, therapists should be aware of any potential drawback and think about combining them with other modalities as needed to create a more thorough treatment plan. So that's all from me. Thank you.